Welcome to Be a Better Marketer, the podcast where top marketing minds share the latest trends, strategies, and real-world tips to help you grow your business and sharpen your skills. Whether you're a pro or just getting started, this is your edge in the marketing world.
Welcome to Be a Better Marketer podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Rosenstein. Today I have the honor of interviewing Cody Howell. Cody, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Hey, thank you.
Can you share a little bit about yourself and your background with our audience?
Yeah, I'm the co-founder of Phantom Marketing, and really what we focus on is sales and marketing operations. And really that's just a fancy way of saying we handle all the back end of your marketing. So you might have ad agencies, running ads, collecting leads, and we're kind of that back end. We focus on the workflows and follow-ups, lead nurture, customer reactivation, software integrations, anything that you need for your back end to make marketing actually work. That's what we focus on.
So what inspired you to start Phantom Marketing and focus so heavily on automation?
Yeah, so I've always been someone my personal life is fairly unorganized, but like in business and in work, I love organization, I love processes, and I love making things work efficiently. So that's kind of where that started. My background is in marketing, like that's what I went to school for. And when I first came into the workforce, I worked at a lead gen agency and kind of got some more of that digital marketing background. Quickly found out I didn't like it, and I liked more the operational side of just business in general. So I'd started a few businesses before, and then I kind of decided, okay, like, how can I connect these two? How can I take marketing and take operations and put them together? Then I found out, hey, this actually kind of exists, under what's called marketing operations. And then just kind of learning the automation piece, I was just like, oh my gosh, this creates the efficiency and just takes things off my plate. And I just let technology either do it 100% or does it with minimal oversight from my end. And so that's kind of how this thing was born. And then from there, it's just kind of grown from there.
They say stop balancing sales and service. What's the biggest mindset shift business owners need to make to embrace that?
Yeah. So I think kind of, the big thing is we need to stop looking at sales and marketing as two different departments or entities, and really it's just kind of one big happy family. Marketing kind of focuses on the side that's, hey, let's get people interested, and sales is how do we take those interested people and turn them into customers. And I think lots of times, especially as the companies get bigger, there becomes this divide between marketing and sales where marketing's, hey, we're generating all these leads and sales isn't closing them, and sales is marketing sending us really bad leads and we can't close bad leads. So I think the big thing is taking more holistic approach and a more wide view of sales and marketing and really focusing on the prospect journey. So what does it look like from someone who's interested in a product or service? How do they find who you are? How do they interact with your company? What does that look like once they engage with your company? So it's really a more full funnel approach. And that's kind of how I, have taken that. And that's where we really focus on is kind of that back end piece of, cool, you might be running ads and your sales team might be doing this. How do we focus it on the prospect itself?
So how do you help clients move from working in their business to working on their business?
Yeah, so that's actually like one of the big things that we focus on is there's really kind of two phases that I see this at. There's kind of the owner operator, kind of probably more local business company who's 1, 2, 3 people working there, the owners in the field. And so a lot of the things that we do will actually take a lot of their admin work, their sales work, their marketing work off their plate and give them time to focus on building the business. Because what I've noticed is a lot of these, especially local businesses, they get to a point where I call it they're too big to be small, but too small to be big. So they kind of sit in that $500,000 to $1 million range in yearly revenue. Like I said, there's usually 1 to 3 people working there, maybe 5. and the owner's doing everything. They're taking sales calls, they're doing payroll, they're out in the field working, they're training, doing taxes, they're everything. And so a lot of the things that we do, while yes, focus on sales and marketing automation, that's going to pull stuff off there. But we also work on just a lot of business automation in general. So there's a lot of tools that we've started to come into and started to use as far as, hey, let's handle bookkeeping and accounting. Let's handle, obviously the sales and marketing. Let's handle customer retention. How can we help with employee retention that we're not constantly having to hire and train? So we really try to work with our business owners to figure out what's on their plate and how can we have technology either take that off their plate or at least lower the burden, so you're not spending 5 hours a week doing bookkeeping. Now you're spending 2 minutes and you're just reviewing that things are done. So now you've effectively saved yourself, those 3, 4, 5 hours a week that you were spending before.
Does your company focus on any like niches or industries?
No, so we position it as we are automation experts. That's what we're really good at. We're really good at automation. And then we work with our customers as more partners, and they bring the industry or niche focus and expertise. So if you're a pool cleaning company, I don't know anything about cleaning a pool. I have a pool in my backyard, and every now and then I get crazy and throw chemicals in it. But you're the expert on cleaning pools. I'm the expert on automation, and together we're going to work together to create a solution for your business. And so that's how we've approached it. Is we don't focus on, hey, we're automation for roofers, or we do, marketing management for pool cleaning companies. It's we do business automation and we do it really well. And while we're working with you, we're going to rely on you for the industry expertise that's needed to make our automations perform.
So you don't do like a cookie cutter approach, like you have like custom solutions for each client, like depending on their needs and type of industry.
Yeah, and I mean, again, from us working in lots of industries, we've obviously found things that work across industries. So yes, we do have templates and things that we can use to speed up our building process, but everything that we do is very much custom to that business. So if someone comes to us with, hey, we want a lead nurture campaign, that's great. We have a template and we have a few options of, hey, these are like pre-built ones that we've seen work, and so we can put these over and obviously adjust it to fit your business. But then we also build from scratch, and we can build from zero, really just kind of depending on the technologies and marketing platforms that you use, where you're spending ad budget, how you're getting customers. So yes, we take a very custom approach, and then on the back end we have kind of some pre-built templates that we use to help speed up the building process that we can then take and adjust to the businesses.
So when like building a marketing strategy, what do you think are like the core elements you believe like every business needs to get right first before, doing anything else?
Yeah, so there's a few things. I think there's kind of three main areas that we see that people should focus on, and that's focusing on the right audience. So lots of people just kind of go, hey, my service anyone can do. Going back to the pool cleaning example, anyone with a pool is my audience. And when you sit down and think about it, that may or may not be true. There's people who want to clean their pools themselves. They're probably not in your audience. So why are we spending time and resources on them? And then, you get into people who just want a quick, once a month, just come through and scrub everything and call it a day. And then, you're going to have people who are like, hey, I want you here every week, making sure that my pool looks immaculate. So I think really figuring out who your true audience is probably one of the biggest things, because then from there, you can create, the other two categories, which I call messaging and offer. So really trying to find the messaging that matches that audience. Again, going back to, hey, we'll come and clean your pool every week. Someone who is a DIY guy is going to be like, yeah, that's not for me. Or same with someone who just wants a monthly cleaning. Like they're going to be like, yeah, that message really doesn't resonate with me. So once you understand your audience, you can then create messaging around it. And then you can also create the third category, which is the offer. So what's that offer going to be? Is that some type of subscription? Is that a one-time, clean in this example? So those are kind of the three components that we really see and focus on when we're working with clients: is who's this audience? What is the messaging and offer that's going to be going to them? Because those are going to control how well this does. And I feel like a lot of people have a general idea of who the audience is, but I think when you can really get in there and narrow it down, and you might have 5 audiences and you just have them really specific, now you can create really specific offers with really specific messaging to each one. And that's a lot of what we do. With us not really having a niche, it gets interesting, like when we're creating material, because it's really easy to say we do business automation and people are like, what is that? So we actually have to get specific and say, cool, when we're talking to roofers, or when we're talking to software companies, or when we're talking to enterprise companies, our messaging and our offers shift based off of those different audiences, because we are trying to service a broad audience. But inside of our broad audience, we create very specific and narrow audiences that our messaging and offer can relate to and solve specific problems, because your problems are going to be very different than someone in a different industry or in a different predicament.
So how does like a business know when they need automation? They need your service. I mean, as you said, like if a company is like a full-size company says, oh, we'll just run Google ads or meta ads. Like one of this to have to start thinking about, hey, when do I have to put in automation?
Yeah, so I kind of see there's a few steps when automation really works, and it kind of grows with the business. From a financial standpoint, I don't think it makes sense if you're not doing above about $500,000 a year in revenue. Now, there's obviously use cases where yes and no and things like that, but in general, about $500,000 is when I see, okay, that makes sense. You're doing enough work. You've kind of figured out a little bit of marketing and sales, and you have some stability, and now you can invest in the marketing piece. You're starting to get busy. You're getting to a point where you're working 12, 13, 14-hour days, 7 days a week. And, like those are some of the parameters. But I think in general, what it looks like is when you're going from first starting to trying to get to implementing automation, I think the big thing looks like you start to plateau. So like when you start, you're pounding pavement, you're cold calling, you're making all the Facebook posts, you're doing whatever you need to find customers. And there's going to get a point where I'm now servicing my customers and I don't have enough time to focus on the sales and marketing aspect. And so that's kind of one of the first hurdles I see, where some basic automations can come into play to kind of help with some of those things. Those can be things like helping you create content so that way you can keep, doing marketing and posting and things like that on social media. That's a very basic version. It's not very expensive, 20, 30, $40 a month. And wow, now you have some basic automation. But I think the real time that automation is helpful is when you're ready to try to move up and hit those, 1 million, 2 million, $3 million a year goals. I think that's really when it kind of makes sense. We actually have a customer who they probably were doing in the ballpark of 1.5 to 2 million a year, and they didn't have a CRM. They didn't have any automation set up. They had no follow-up sequences, and they literally had 3 salespeople, and all they were doing was taking phone calls all day. And so they're like, we're doing good. Like the business is doing great, but we know that we are leaving money on the table because our salespeople are so just hammered in sales calls that they don't have time to follow up with the people who aren't interested right now. And so that was one of the times where it's like really easy to see, like, we could come in and build you the most basic automation, and we're going to make you 50,000 extra dollars this month just by setting up a 10-minute automation. So I think every business is going to be unique. I think when it makes sense is when you have the budget to invest in it, and when you're really going to be trying to push to get your business to that next level. I think those are really
What are
kind
you
of the
talking
two main qualifiers.
You're talking about need a budget. So what type of budget is he talking about? Like 1,000 a month, 10,000 a month?
Yeah, and I mean that's going to depend obviously on what you're doing. From a sales and marketing standpoint, usually your CRM will offer some type of sales and marketing automation. In the local business, you have House Call Pro and Jobber, and those have some basic sales and marketing automations in them, and those are a few $100s a month. Then kind of from there, you move into something like high level. And that CRM is probably going to run you in the ballpark of $300 to $500 a month. And then as you move up, you get into HubSpot, probably that $1,000 to $3,000 a month, and then into something like Salesforce. You know, that could be an infinite amount of money once you get into Salesforce. But so at every stage of business, there's definitely automations you can implement. I would really say kind of when you get into that high level, you probably want to be able to spend around 500 to $1,000 a month. And that's kind of what you're looking at because you're doing things like automated email campaigns. You're running things like lead nurture campaigns, customer reactivation campaigns. There's some cool things you can do with getting reviews on automated reviews for your Google My Business type page. I just had a sales call today with someone who's, hey, we want to get reviews on our LinkedIn profiles. Great. There's ways to set that up. And all those things obviously cost money to run. They're going to be infinitely cheaper than running ads and things like that. But you're usually paying some type of software cost plus then text and email cost on top of that. So the bigger your contact list, the more you're going to spend. So it's hard to say, hey, here's what your budget needs to be. Usually you're paying some type of software cost, usually in the $100 to $500 range. And then you're paying, a tenth of a cent per email up to 2 cents per text message. Depending on how many of those you're going to send out is really going to be based off of your contact list.
So I want to ask you about that because you said like part of the automation email, but some people say like email marketing is dead. Nobody checks their emails anymore. Like they're all on social media. What's your take on that? Is email really dead? I mean, is there any point in that? Does anybody check their email anymore?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think email is necessarily dead. I think email the old way is dead. You can't just blast out and just be like, hey, I do this service or I sell this product. Come buy from me. Yes, that doesn't work. You need to be providing value at all times. Like you need to be giving significantly more than you're going to be taking from, your prospects. And email does work really great on customer reactivation. So people who have already worked with you, people who already know you, email still works great. And, a lot of people I think don't really play into this, but we also do a lot of like SMS or text message campaigns. And those do amazing. We actually worked with a startup, again, local service company, and he had a contact list of probably 1,500 people that just through his career that he's worked with. And he's, dude, there's no way I can go through and text all these people. I wake up at 5 a.m. every morning and try to send out 15 to 20 text messages before I start my day. And so we actually set up an automated campaign. And every day, this automation would text about 30 to 50 people on his list because we didn't want to inundate him with too many responses. And all the automation was, hey, first names would be, hey, Daniel, how's your day going? Or how's business going? We weren't trying to sell anything. It was literally just keep the relationship going. Through this automation, he got a referral for a $75,000 job in the first 6 weeks of launching this. So yeah, he maybe spent $15 in text messages and he got a $75,000 job out of it. Now, is that typical? Probably not. And it was a warm list, so it's not like we were cold texting people with people he had already known before. But just being able to use the automation piece to continue the relationships that he already had that he was falling behind on. Would he have gotten that job? I don't know. But I do know that because we sent that text message and started that conversation, he was able to land this job versus him waking up at 5 a.m. trying to text her, had would he have texted this person in time? Maybe, maybe not. There's 1,500 people and he was only getting through 20 of them a day. It would have taken him 6 months to get to her. Would she still have had the job then? I don't know. Is email dead? I don't think so. But I also think if you're relying solely on email, you're definitely leaving cracks in your strategy, and there's definitely ways to improve.
So, like you talk, I mean, is there any particular software that you guys use? Like you mentioned, Go High Level or HubSpot. Or is there any of the softwares you really like prefer to work with?
Yeah. So, I mean, it really just kind of depends on where your business is at. And again, it kind of goes back to the budget thing. If you're kind of on a tighter budget, I really like High Level, especially for small businesses. I say High Level is great for businesses doing 0 to about 10 million a year in revenue. So if you're in that 0 to 10 million range, I really recommend High Level. It's really cost effective. It's reliable, and for the price, you're getting a ton of value out of it. It replaces a ton of tools, especially as someone who's starting up. You need all the savings you can get. So we really like High Level from that end, especially when we work with local service companies. Usually they have something like House Call Pro or Jobber. And so we'll actually connect those to High Level, and we only use the automation pieces in High Level, and then they use House Call Pro or Jobber, whatever they're using as their CRM. So they can still keep their CRM, but High Level is flexible enough to where we can do the automation stuff on the back end. But if you are, kind of more like SaaS focused or software focused, or you're kind of beyond that 10 million in yearly revenue, that's kind of where it makes sense to start looking at something like HubSpot or even Salesforce. Those platforms are definitely a lot more reliable as far as, what you're going to get out of it. Again, not that High Level's bad or anything, but there have been times where like we have clients like, hey, I can't log in, and it's, oh, hey, High Level's having a server issue. I can't help you there. Sorry. But with HubSpot and Salesforce, you don't deal with that, especially High Level. As you start to add in more users, things start to slow down. So if you have bigger contact lists and things like that, a platform like HubSpot or Salesforce are definitely built better for those. So yeah, it really just kind of depends on where you're at. But I really like High Level for our kind of 0 to 10 million in yearly revenue range.
I mean, some companies, they start like building a funnel and then they start experiencing like funnel fatigue. What do you do like in that situation when, a client, or business is having like funnel fatigue, and do you just recreate the funnel from scratch, or what's your approach to?
Yeah, so we run our funnels and workflows a lot. Advertising agencies do. That's the background I come from, and so I run a lot of things like that. It's like when you're running a Google ad or Facebook ad, you're constantly checking in on it. You're constantly looking at performance, and when it starts to decline, you constantly have A/B tests going. You constantly have other things running. That way, when this one declines, you have something you can switch into. So that's a lot how we run. Like when we manage our customers' automations and backend, we're constantly running A/B tests on our email campaigns. We're running A/B tests on our funnels. So we're constantly running different tests, trying to figure out what does well, what doesn't do well. We're watching for fatigue. That way we can catch it before it's already, done. So we kind of run it a lot more like an advertising agency in that sense, where we're constantly testing, we're constantly looking at performance, and we're always trying to run some type of A/B test, because you never know. I've seen where we set up, these beautiful workflows that I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is beautiful. But then the first email is just horrendous, and this doesn't resonate with anyone. But lots of people just set it up, forget it, and walk away, and they go, oh, it's automated. And yeah, it is automated, but it doesn't mean it's performing. Kind of to your point, is email marketing dead? Yeah, if you set it and forget it, it is. So it's really good to check back in on those and go, hey, we sent 1,000 emails of this first email in the sequence, and 2 people have opened it. Yeah, that's terrible. We need to go back in and figure out, why aren't people opening this email? Is our deliverability good? Is the subject line catchy? Is what we're sending even relevant to the people we're sending it to? So we kind of run a lot of it, with this testing and kind of auditing in mind as we test and build.
Yeah, in my experience, especially running like meta ads, like after a while, like some ads get like ad fatigue. Even like Meta will tell you inside the platform, like this ad creative is having fatigue, and you gotta keep changing it. I mean, sometimes there are like ads creatives in Meta that will continue to run well, like month after month, or even like after a year. But most of the time, we gotta keep, you said, like testing them out.
Yeah,
And
exactly. And that's how it is with what we do. I mean, yes, email may be relevant to people for a long time, but there's going to be market shifts. There's going to be trends that pop up. And so you want to make sure that you're in front of those, and that you're taking advantage of them. So yeah, it's just like that, just like that.
So I want to ask you, what do you think is the most underrated use of automation that some businesses may be missing out? If some business not using automation, what do you think there may be some, important parts to it that, hey,
Yeah.
you're really missing out if you're not using this automation because X, Y, and Z.
So I think there's probably four different ones that I can think off the top of my head. The first one is just anything in your CRM. You set up your CRM, you have new leads, interested leads, booked a meeting with, proposal, all those different stages. I've just noticed we've probably worked with, I don't know, 250, 300 customers now. 90% of them don't have any automated follow-up set up in those. And some of them are a bit more difficult to create custom and good follow-up for. But even just a simple, hey, how's it going? Oh my God. That goes so far to someone, especially if they're in your current sales pipeline, that like you would be surprised at just the simplest follow-up. And the thing is, your salesperson doesn't need to do it. It's totally automated. It's super affordable. It's going to cost you 2 cents or less to do. And just the fact that you're keeping in touch with these prospects while you're trying to sell them just shows that, hey, we're interested in you more than just your money or more than just your wallet. Like, we actually care about you. So I think that's probably the first one that I see a ton. The next one is probably lead nurture. I see so many people that have a CRM set up, and then they run ads to a funnel. They get all these people interested, and then they hop on calls and yeah, they're not interested, and they just throw the lead out. And I'm like, well, yeah, they're not interested today, but they might be interested next month or 3 months down the road or 6 months down the road, and you just stop talking to them. And by setting up an automation, a lead nurture campaign, you're going to be top of mind for the next 6 months, 8 months, a year, however long you set this up for. So that way, when they're ready a year down the road, hey, they're finally ready to go. Actually, I just bought a piece of software last week, and the guy it's been 2 years since I looked at this software. It took me 2 years to finally decide to buy this software. They followed up with me for 1 year. I knew who they were, and this last year, I just kind of totally forgot about it. And when I was in the market to buy again, I was like, oh, what's the name of this software? And I went back into my email. Here you go, email marketing working. I went back into my email to go find the name of the company because I was finally ready to purchase. Even though someone's not ready to buy today, doesn't mean they're not going to be ready to buy a month, a year, in my case, 2 years down the road. Don't just get leads and then toss them out because they're not ready to buy right now. The next one I see is customer reactivation. And that's a big one. A lot of people get customers and they go, great, we closed the sale. Let's go find more people. I've literally built my company on getting referrals from customers and reaching out to old customers. Like, hey, we need to stop right now because right now it's not a good time. Hey, great, no worries. We keep following up 3, 5, 6 months down the road. Hey, we're ready to come back. I didn't have to spend any extra money other than a handful of emails just checking in on them. I didn't have to go generate new leads. I didn't have to hop on sales calls. I didn't have to pay commission to anyone. It's literally a 1/10 of a cent email that I sent out that was, hey, just checking in, see how things are going. So I think customer reactivation is a big one. I can confidently say 100% of our customers have never had one set up. Like it's one that is totally just kind of just kicked off to the side. And then the last one, just kind of wrap up, is reviews, just automated reviews. This one is set up fairly common. This is a big one. But if you're not doing them correctly, you can annoy a lot of people. But getting reviews is a great way to, if you're a local company, it really helps your SEO, getting a lot of those reviews on your Google My Business. But even if you're not, just collecting those reviews and having them as testimonials, being able to use them in content, there's just a lot that you can do with reviews. One of the sales calls I was on today was, hey, do you have reviews from past customers? And so just having just a library of reviews that you can just send over and be like, yeah, here's 200 reviews of people just praising us, goes a long way. So those are kind of the four that I see either not set up or used incorrectly, that I think if every business could implement, they'd see tons of increase in their sales.
So yeah, it's a lot of big reasons why people should consider using automation, because some people may not know anything about it. What is automation? Why should I, you said it costs money. Like, why should I spend money?
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing, is there's a mind shift that needs to happen around it. A lot of people look at automation as, oh, it's another expense. And yes, it costs money to do automation. It costs money to run a business. But I would say 9 out of 10 times, the amount of money that you spend on automation makes you, at least 2, if not 3, 4-fold what you're spending. Like I said, that guy that we set up his text message, just kind of automation, that was a $75,000 job. He was paying $200 a month for his automation platform. That's
was it worth about $200 to make sense?
Yeah, that's a 3,500x. That totally makes sense. Now that's not typical. Usually you're gonna spend 200 and probably make a few thousand back, but that's what it's capable of doing. At first there is a learning curve and it's gonna cost money. It's not like you just turn it on and it works on day one. It's probably similar to running ads. Like, you don't just turn ads on and they work on day one. You got to test into it. You got to figure it out. But once you get a system that runs, not only are you making more money, but you're saving time, which ultimately covers the cost of what you were doing, because now you're not having to sit there and send emails and send text messages and alert people. And lots of these platforms now can create tasks, so you're not having to do as much project management. And so now you're saving yourself 5 hours a week. How much is 5 hours a week worth to you? Depending on your business, you're charging $100, $200, $300 an hour. That's $500, $1,000, $1,500 a week that you're saving in labor. So it's okay. Yeah, you might spend $300, $400, $500 on automation, but you're saving yourself, $1,500 in labor costs. So it may not come directly through sales. It can also come through savings of, paying employees or things like that.
So when do you decide to, and like you said, sales and marketing, like what part should be like done by a human versus what part should be automated?
Yeah, especially when you're starting, I think anything that has to do with relationships needs to be done by a human. Anything that's done directly with a customer, I think should be human led. Now, I think where automation can come in and help that is to initiate those conversations. So in the case of, this guy that we were sending text messages, we were only sending the initial text message. So we created 15, like we sat with him and we said, hey, we need to come up with 15 different ways that you would normally start a conversation. So he came up with the 15. So it wasn't like AI generated or anything like that. And then all we did was just automate them and change them up. So today it might be like, hey, Dan, how's it going? And if you didn't respond in 2 more weeks, we'd be like, hey, man, how's business? Haven't heard from you in a while. But those were all written by him, by a human. The only thing we were doing was basically waiting to send that initial response. And then when you responded and said, oh, hey, I've been so busy, sorry I didn't answer you, all we did was alert him. So we would send him a text message that says, hey, Daniel's answered your text message back. Make sure you respond. He would then hop into the platform, respond, and he would have a conversation. So I think automation definitely can help on getting conversations started. I don't think I would use it to run the conversation or build a relationship with someone, because you do want to kind of have a personal connection with your prospects and customers. But then there's a lot of back-end tasks that automation can help with. So things like assigning tasks to people, alerting people, like all those things can be automated and, can tell you, hey, it's time to go do this. It's time to do that. It can send content out, sending these emails out to prospects. It's the same idea as this text messaging. It's, hey, lead, we haven't heard from you in 4 months. Here's some value that a human has gone and sourced and, that has decided, hey, this is good for you. So yeah, I think that's kind of how we approach it. Is automation is really great for getting things started and keeping in touch and making sure people know that we exist. But once that human engages, that's where the automation starts and we let humans take over.
What do you do when you have, clients that are kind of feeling overwhelmed and, they're kind of resistance to change, using all these automated systems, you know what I mean? Like they have the kind of the systems in place.
Yep.
Hey, what's going on here? Like, the sales team does that.
Yeah. So usually we try to find a pain point of what is something that's hurting you that you don't have someone doing, and we'll start there. And then once they see, oh my gosh, this is so much easier, almost every time it just snowballs into, wait, so I can do this for my sales team? Oh, I can do this. Because the goals of our automations isn't to replace people, it's to enhance people. I don't want my salespeople to be totally replaced. But if my salespeople can take 10 meetings a day instead of 6 meetings, yeah, I want that. Like, I want my salespeople on more sales calls. So if I can spend $500 a month to get them on 4 more sales calls a day, yeah, that makes sense. That's a great investment. And so, yes, lots of times I get with people who are like, no, 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 we already have a process. It works fine. And, I call it weaseling in. We try to weasel our way in and find just something small that's, okay, can we automate this little thing? And then almost every time that snowballs into, can we also put that for our customer service reps? Yeah, sure. Let's put it over there. Oh, wow, this is me. Can we do it for our salespeople? And it just snowballs and and goes from there.
So now everybody these days is talking about AI.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think are the best ways, business owners or executives can be implementing AI?
Yeah, so I think there's a big use case for AI and automation on customer service. I think customer service is a big area where we're going to see AI kind of come in, because lots of people, when customer, especially if you're selling products and you're just kind of answering what I call FAQ questions, just kind of the same set of 10, 20, 30 questions over and over again. That's a spot where AI is going to do really well, because most of the time people don't want to talk to someone anyway. They don't want to call on the phone and be like, hey, where's this at? Or, what's my tracking number? Things like that. So I think those are great use cases for AI. Obviously, being in the space that I'm in, I see a ton of things with AI cold calls and, trying to create AI agents for everything. And I love AI agents. Don't get me wrong. We actually have a customer right now who is using AI voice agent to kind of act as a voicemail box. So instead of just getting, hey, this is Cody, leave a message after the tone, beep, it's an AI agent that answers and says, hey, and it says, hey, I'm Cody's AI agent. Is there anything I can help you with? Or if not, leave a message and I'll make sure Cody gets it. So it's more like an interactive voicemail, because lots of times someone's going to call in and they're going to ask a question or want something that I don't need to spend time on. My AI agent can take care of. So like there's definitely other ways there. But again, I think it comes back to the actual building relationships is still going to be human focused. I don't think AI is going to be able to take that over. I think it's going to be able to assist in it. At least for now. Who knows? Maybe they create something that gets really good with creating relationships. But everyone can sniff out, hey, this looks AI, or this feels AI, or this reads like AI, and they're slowly getting better and better. But again, like the relationship side, I just don't think is going anywhere. So I think AI is great, and there's definitely ways that you can put it, especially on the sales and marketing side, where AI can help with lead enhancement. Hey, we have a name and email. AI can go look up and try to find a phone number for us. Or if we have a ton of info on the prospect, it can go and try to find things about this prospect. Hey, this prospect really likes baseball. Great, let's bring that up in our sales call. So there's definitely a lot of ways where I think AI can help us. I don't think AI, at least yet, is at a point where it's going to be replacing anyone yet. Who knows? We'll see. Technology's crazy.
It's been, yeah, it's they said like the speed that AI is learning, it's like it's literally doubling its understanding and its intelligence like every year. And the
Mhm.
fact that how far it's already gone, that is almost a little bit scary to see like where like, 5 to 10 years. So we'll see what's gonna happen in the future. I mean, aside from AI, what do you think like other marketing trends like business owners they're not like using or not taking advantage of?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just business owners and really just companies in general just trying to, I think a lot of them just aren't genuine enough. A lot of it is either, like, on the smaller scale, it's either the business owner hides behind the brand and goes, "Hey, I'm, Cody's plumbing company," and all they do is talk about how they can sell you stuff. And customers don't want to engage in that. Customers want to buy from Cody, or they want to buy from Daniel, or they want to buy from whoever. And people want to buy from people. And I think a lot of times that gets lost, especially as automation and AI become more relevant. That people to people kind of gets lost there because it turns into a lot of, oh, I'm Phantom Marketing, I can do your automation. But I'll tell you, I don't think I've ever had. That's not true. I had one, but most of my customers buy because they like who I am. I don't necessarily have the cheapest pricing. I don't necessarily have the fastest turnaround time, but they know that, hey, I like Cody. I know Cody's going to do a good job. I know Cody's going to stay up to date on things. I know Cody's going to deliver the best possible product for me. And so I'm buying Cody and what he does. I'm not necessarily buying automation from Phantom Market. And so I think that's something that just kind of gets lost. And I think I don't know that that's necessarily a trend per se, but I think that's something that gets lost in. And I think too, you'll kind of notice this if you spend time on TikTok. I've noticed this a lot with car dealerships. A lot of car dealerships have started having their sales reps kind of be the front image of their brand. There's a guy, he used to work at a Lincoln dealership. His name's Russ Flips Whips or something like that. And essentially his whole thing is, it's him trying to sell people cars, but all he does is he goes on and he just kind of makes fun of the car buying experience. So now people have a relationship with this guy of, oh man, he gets it. Every time we go in, we have to sit there and negotiate. And I've been here all day. And like, he's making fun of all these different scenarios that car buyers end up in. And so then these people are like super attached to him because they feel connected to him. And yes, 99% of the audience isn't ready to buy. But that 1% that is ready to buy, they know they can trust this guy. So they're going to go there and buy from him. They're not buying from the Lincoln dealership of wherever he's at. They're buying from, their local friend on TikTok. And I think that gets lost a lot. There's another car guy I see. He does all these skits. There's one where he was acting like Borat. And then there's another one where he's acting like the Austin Powers villain with his pinky, and like he does these skits that show like, hey, we're human, and that's what brings people in. And I think lots of times that gets lost as we're trying to be professional and this is my business, and and all those things. And not that we shouldn't do those, but people are people. People like to have fun. People like to laugh. People are sad. People are happy. People are angry. People have all these emotions. And so by being able to go out and connect with people, it's just amazing. So yeah, I think that's the trend, is figuring out how to stay people to people connected.
So if somebody's interested in getting started with automation, where should they begin?
Yeah, I think the very first thing is trying to take a look. If you have a CRM system, I think that's a great place to start. Like I said, a lot of CRMs have kind of their own built-in CRM automation platform, and those will kind of get you started. I mean, you can always follow me. I'm always talking about automation and just how to get started. So you can follow me. I'm mostly on Facebook and LinkedIn. Another great learning resource is honestly just like YouTube. Like I would just say, type in automation for whatever type of business you have. And there's tons of tutorials on there of just different ideas that you can do. Another great one is ChatGPT. That's how we actually come up with a lot of ideas of ways we can automate things. So like you can type into ChatGPT, hey, I have a landscaping business. What kind of automations can I implement into my business? And ChatGPT will kick out 10, 20, 30 ideas for you. So yeah, that's kind of where I'd start. And I would just kind of get familiar with what can be automated. You don't necessarily need to know how to do it. I would just kind of think of what can be automated. So what kind of activities are you doing? And then figuring out, okay, can this be automated or not? And then from there you decide, do I want to automate it or do I want to pay someone to do it for me?
So if someone's watching this interview and they have any questions, or they're interested in hiring your company to help them set up automations and increase their ROI, make more money, what's the best way for them to like reach out to you?
Yeah, two ways. You can go to our website. So it's phantommarketing.com. There's only one M. So it's Phantom and Marketing. They share the same M. So phantommarketing.com, or send me an email, Cody@phantommarketing.com. Either one of those, they both go to me. So either one of those is the best way to get in touch.
What do you think that may be some like the biggest, or like the common marketing myths that you can debunk? Do you think that a
Big,
lot of like business think about, it's not true, but you're like say, nah, this is how it really is?
The biggest miss, I'd probably have to say, marketing isn't going to make you rich. I think marketing is just one of the ways that you get in front of your customers. Like what we do doesn't make people necessarily rich by any means. It's just another way of getting in front of customers, whether it's running ads, whether it's running email campaigns, whether it's doing it organically through social media. They're all just different avenues of getting in front of the group of people that you're trying to, sell to.
It's one aspect of the business. Like, as you said, like if you don't have a well-oiled machine for their business, adding, just automation, I mean, you have no idea how to run a business.
Exactly.
To make you $1 million only.
Yep.
But it is an important part to
Yeah,
running a successful business and to growing your business.
Yeah, it's an important part. Like you said, it's just one part, whether it's marketing, whether it's sales, whether it's your backend operations, whether it's product or service fulfillment. Like those are all things that are super important. Which one's more important? That's always a debate. You're not going to be a millionaire overnight just from figuring out marketing. Like there's a lot of other things in your business. So yeah, that's probably the biggest one I would say. We talked to so many people that I could just put automation and then I don't have to work again. I'm like, sure, if you don't want to have a business, yeah, go for it. But that's not how it works.
So, I mean, aside from like the time you said like that guy got a 75,000 job, can you maybe share some other success stories that help people like with setting up their automation?
Yeah. So, I mean, we've got a handful. I mean, we worked with actually, we currently still work with them, a carpet cleaning company in Indiana. And, they were doing decent. They were probably top 5 in like the Indianapolis area. But he wasn't, his only review automation was him asking people after everything. He would ask them, hey, can you leave me a review? And Then he would go out in his truck, sit there and type a message and text them a link to go leave a review. And so we're like, yeah, we're not doing that anymore. So we set up review automation for him, got him 200 reviews in the first 3 months of launching. And he went from being ranked in like the top 5 to now he's number 1 or number 2 in almost every search in Indianapolis for carpet cleaning. And so
That's
it's
amazing.
like, yeah, so like from our automation, his SEO went like that. That's what he was missing, because he didn't have a ton of reviews. Everything was great besides that. And so the second we started adding more reviews to that, he just shot up to the top. So that's another one. We had this customer, I mentioned them briefly, they kind of came on at kind of that 1.5, 2 million mark. January. Okay, so we've been working with them for 4 months now. We've totally overhauled their sales pipeline, their customer onboarding pipeline. And just this week, maybe last week, they hired 2 more salespeople and 6 more customer service people. And their salespeople are able to manage, I think they were managing about 100 prospects at a time. And right now they're averaging about 225 prospects per salesperson. So essentially, each salesperson is able to do the job of what would have been 2 salespeople before we started helping them. So that's been a huge, that's been a huge boost for them. I think they went from doing about 150,000 a month to right now, I think their pipeline currently has 350 to 400,000 in their pipeline right now. They're probably, really, they're probably going to 3x by the end of the year.
Wow. And kind of like you said before, like automation didn't fire the whole sales team. They actually grew the sales team.
Yeah, no, it grew the sales team.
Hiring more people instead of just getting rid of it. So it depends on how you get things set up and how your business is run. You actually wind up hiring more employees to handle all the workload, all the extra leads and sales coming in. Wow, congratulations. That's really amazing. So Cody, do you have any like final words like to share with the audience? Cody, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing with us all about like automation, and definitely learned a lot, from this conversation. I'm sure a lot of our listeners will. So I appreciate you, teaching us about the importance of automation. If anybody again had any questions about any of this, I'm sure they can reach out to you, and you can help them out with their automation. Send them up.